Shalom. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Kakwadash. Double honors to our elders and apostles, a great millstone that taught us his truth. Peace, love, and salutations to the hopeful like Akim, teaching and preaching his truth with all righteousness and sincerity. Dezak Yawasab. Today's lesson is entitled, The Insurrection Act is End Time Prophecy. And Lord willing, be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, which are the true names of the Heavenly Father, his beloved Son, in the Paleo Hebrew. And as always, the sit-downs, the lessons, the street speaking is for the remnant, the elect, the Israel, the Most High, to you as the gospel preached. So I have Chat GPT pulled up. I typed in the Insurrection Act Simplified. And we're going to go ahead and go into it and link it up with end time prophecy. And Lord willing, you be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. And as we always say on these lessons, you know, our focal point is prophecy, okay? And in the prophecies, it speaks about the testimony of Yahweh Shai, which is he whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, is the spirit of prophecy. All right, so that's what we push in these lessons. You've been hearing a lot about these National Guards being militarized and sent into various states throughout Babylon the Great, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, DC. All right, this is Esau coming down with great wrath because he knoweth that he had but a short time. And I'm quoting from Revelation 12:12. And as we see Esau, the devil, all right, pushing these policies, number one, it identifies who he is. Okay. Esau, Edom, when you read in Genesis, the 27th chapter, his blessing was the sword and the fatness of the earth, which the fatness of the earth goes into the resources and, you know, basically controlling the, you know, being in a position of power and controlling the world. But alongside the blessing of the fatness of the earth, he was given the sword as a blessing, which the sword today is his military. All right. And he's going to use his military to forward his agenda in the earth. So we're going to read about this Insurrection Act and link it up to end time prophecy to, Lord willing, give understanding of what these things are. It says the Insurrection Act is a U.S. federal law that lets the president send in the military, like the Army or National Guard, within the United States in certain emergencies, usually to restore order when normal law enforcement can't handle it. And you know, when you're reading these articles and you looking into the news, you're hearing about, you know, how different areas are experiencing an influx in crime, which these areas have always experienced crime. All right, Baltimore, Los Angeles, DC, hey, they make movies on it. But now we're seeing Esau, you know, wanting to send the military in the form of the National Guard into these areas. And ultimately is because he has an agenda that he wants to fulfill. Or in order for Esau, Edom, to push his enterprise, which ultimately is the MOTB, but leading up to the MOTB, which is the mark of the beast being pushed, he has to push out his digital ID. All right, and he need chaos, insurrection. He need an uprising. He need a rebellion in order to be justified in pushing it. So this Insurrection Act falls right in line with his agenda. It says, once again, the Insurrection Act is a U.S. federal law that lets the president send in the military, like the Army or National Guard, within the United States in certain emergencies, usually to restore order when normal law enforcement can't handle it. It's meant to be used in extreme situations such as violent uprisings or rebellions against the government, riots or chaos. You have the deportation acts that were happening throughout the summer, and it's still happening. You know, you got ICE still going in and finding these migrants. Over the last 2 weeks, there were reports coming out how there were ICE raids going into certain areas, certain black communities, and they were looking for Haitians, but they were rounding up American citizens, so-called blacks, old and young, both maids, little children, and women, putting zip ties on them and locking them in. All right, and that triggered a response, and as it says here, riots or chaos. And as these operations continue to happen, people is going to get fed up. You got a government shutdown. You got people not being able to access these governmental assistance programs. You got deportations. All right, you got military personnel in the form of the Army and National Guards in these cities. Esau is trying to provoke people to uprise. In his prophecy, it says when a state refuses to enforce federal law or protect people's rights. So you have some states which, we always speak on it, how there's a bipartisan government. Scriptures speak about a beast coming out of the earth with two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, which goes into the bipartisan government that Edom uses to basically deceive Babylon, all right, to push out confusion. You got the right and the left, you got the Democrats and the Republicans, which this goes back to the ancient Roman Empire, where you had the patricians and the plebeians, when in all actuality they're set up to forward the agenda of the elites, but they do it by way of confusion. So you have certain states that are Republican-led states, and then you have certain states that are Democrat-led states. Now, the Democrat-led state, one of which is Baltimore, they pushed out how, look, we don't need the military, we don't need the National Guard here, we can quell it, but local law enforcement isn't being able to, quench the uprising crime, which ultimately is all a shit show. It's all a shit show. It's all bread and circus, but in a political way. But Esau needs the visuals. He needs the content to be pushed out so people can see it. And when he authorizes Insurrection Act on a major scale throughout the cities, people will say, okay, well, we know that it was crime. We know that it was this. We've been seeing it. We've been hearing it. All right. It says, normally the military isn't allowed to act like police in the United States because of another law called the Posse Comitatus Act. Salakia. Elder Apostle Tahar was just going into this. The Insurrection Act is the main exception to that rule. It says it's been used a few times in history, for example, to enforce civil rights laws in the South, desegregation in the 1950s and 60s during riots like the 1992 Los Angeles riots. In short, the Insurrection Act gives the president power to use the military to restore order during serious domestic unrest. So this is used to, once again, in extreme cases such as violent uprisings and rebellions, riots, or chaos, when the state refuses to enforce federal law or protect people's rights. Now, can we find this in the prophecies? Can we find this in the end time prophecies? You're absolutely right. All right, we're going to go to 2nd Esdras 15. In 2nd Esdras 15, 2nd Esdras 16, it deals with what the scriptures call Jacob's trouble. I did a lesson yesterday through the Spirit going into what is Jacob's trouble. So when you go here, I'm going to start up here at the first verse. It says, 2nd Esdras 15:1, behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord. So we're supposed to be bringing out the prophecies on these videos as we teaching the Israelites, those that's of the elect. He calls them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true, meaning that these prophecies, these words that we bring out, is going to come to pass. When we're talking about the Insurrection Act and we're linking it up to biblical prophecy, it's going to happen. Fear not the imaginations against thee, and let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee. So as we preaching this word, we're going to have some resistance against the message. We're going to have imaginations. We're going to have discrediting towards the message. Oh, that's not going to happen. Oh, the Insurrection Act is just going to be, they're just talking about it in those little couple of states. It's not going to go all throughout America. We're going to have that type of incredulity. It says, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness. It's going to be a lot of death. And when we go down to the 12th verse, it says, and I recommend you read the whole entire chapter, but we're going to hit these points. We're going to precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little, there a little, as it's written. It says, Egypt shall mourn. Now, Egypt, when you read in Revelation 11 and 8, it speaks about that great city being spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. So this Egypt here isn't talking about ancient Egypt. It's talking about America, the Babylon the great city. Egypt shall mourn. And we seeing the beginning phases of this place mourning. Every time you look up, there's something that's being pushed out throughout the Trump administration that's making the American lifestyle a living hell. Okay? Remember, they was counseling the DEI. You know, it was a lot of job loss. Now it's it's a government shutdown where a lot of jobs are being furloughed. People getting laid off. People still got to go to work, not knowing when the hell they're going to get paid. Then you go to the grocery store. The prices are astronomical. Gas prices is high. Don't forget the tariffs, immigration, deportation, ICE raids, people uproaring against that, right? Uptick in crime. Then you got talks of insurrection acts. Egypt is mourning, and this is the beginning of sorrows. It says, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. Ultimately, when the Lord brings the second death, which will be by way of thermonuclear destruction during World War III, when those ICBM missiles come steadfastly into Babylon. All right, that's the ultimate plague. But leading up to that judgment, this place is going to mourn. It said, they that till the ground shall mourn, the farmers, and their seed shall fail through the blasting and hail and with the fearful constellation. And these farmers are suffering. All right. These weird weather phenomenons, these different seeds that they put in the land, in the ground. What happens is it ultimately destroys the land. All right. They're only able to use them one time, and then that land becomes infertile. And then on top of that, these farmers can't keep up with the rising cost of farming operations, so they end up selling it to these major corporations, and the major corporations just destroys the food. You know, they basically getting in control of the food, and then while they're doing it, they put more chemicals in it. It says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword in their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. And as we were reading with the Insurrection Act, it's used when there's violent uprising or rebellions against the government. So what Esau Edom is going to do is, when these prophecies come to pass, he's going to use the Insurrection Act as a form of a sword being sent. Once again, 2 Esdras 15 verse 15, for the sword in their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hands. People are going to have weapons. People are going to revolt. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes. In the course of their actions shall stand in their power. That fits right with the details here with the Insurrection Act. Riots or chaos, violent uprising, rebellions against the government. When it says they shall not regard their kings nor princes, this is the government. Whether it's the mayor, whether it's the president, whether it's law enforcement, local law enforcement, people's not going to give a damn about that, because as these policies that the president administration is pushing out is financially crippling the society, and people is getting destroyed economically by it, people is going to want to go out and fight. All right, we've always said week in, week out, while we out there on the highways and the byways, that the Heavenly Father is going to touch these people's pockets. You know, he's going to touch the finances, and that's going to get people riled up. You know, people are already experiencing evictions, car repossessions. You know, when I'm driving up and down these streets working, all I see is a whole bunch of furniture put out on the corner in different cities. All right, different cities throughout Los Angeles County. When I'm driving through them, I'm seeing couches, beds, furniture, dressers just put out. These are people that got evicted. You know, these unmarked tow trucks. It don't say AAA on it. It don't say city towing. It don't say, you know, those are repos. That's all you see. If you pay attention, you'll see them. Then you go to the grocery store, you know, 3 pounds of chicken breast is damn near $20. People is going to uprise against this place. And then you hearing the presidents, they not talking about bringing a solution. So people is going to revolt. It says, for there shall be sedition. And sedition is, let me see. Sedition means incite to riot or rebel. So it's going to be people on the internet inciting this stuff, because that's where you're able to reach a lot of people. So freedom of speech is going to get taken away. It says, and there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another, people going into people's houses. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, in the course of their actions shall stand in their power. A man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Why? Because it's going to be checkpoints. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. You know, this Insurrection Act is going to be enacted in these various cities throughout Babylon the Great, and ultimately in areas where the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are. And it's going to be, see, Jacob's trouble is not just for Jacob, which Jacob are you Israelites. But the people that's going to be affected the most are the Israelites. You're going to have so-called white people and other nations, Asians and Persians, all being affected by it. Big ass Japhites, Ammon, Moab. You're going to have all these people getting affected by it. But those that's going to get affected the most are you Israelites. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. This is Jacob's trouble. It's going to get so bad out here, people are going to be looking for food. Let's go to 2nd Ezra 16 and we'll close out. Second Ezra 16 verse 70. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities, linking up what we just read in the 15th chapter, a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. Like I was saying, through the Spirit, you know, Jake is going to get affected the most. These nations, they're going to see it too and be affected. But those that fear the Lord, the Israelites, they're going to get affected the most. They're going to be the primary focus for this great insurrection, linking up with the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act is a U.S. federal law that lets the president send in the military, like the Army and National Guard, within the United States in certain emergencies, usually to restore order when normal law enforcement can't handle it. It's meant to be used in extreme situations such as violent uprisings or rebellions against the government. We read that in 2nd Ezra 15. Rise of chaos. We read that in 2nd Ezra 15, where the state's authorities can't maintain control when the state refuses to enforce law, federal law, or protect people's rights. Esau, he's going to bring the insurrection. Once again, 2nd Ezra 16 verse 70, for there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. This is Jacob's trouble. They shall be like madmen, sparing none, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord. This is Jacob's trouble. But they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. So the Insurrection Act is end time prophecy. This is Esau coming down with great wrath. Matter of fact, let's close out on that. Revelation 12 and 12. See, the prophecies lets us know who the Edomites are. We're not going off phenotypes and skin color. It says, therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. The holy apostles and prophets. This is a time that we're going to rejoice, because the Lord is going to lift up a standard during this time. Isaiah 59:19, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. So we're going to see great works happen during this time. It says, woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil, Esau, is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. These devils have a short time to rule, and they're going to use his sword to forward a lot of their policies in the earth. All right, we understand that the digital ID has to come before the MOTB, but with a natural disaster, all right, a T attack, cyber attack, this will cause things to move fast. So keep watching, Hakim. Lord willing, you're edified. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Kakwadash, and double honors to our elders and apostles of great millstone that taught us this true Shalom.